Mr. Emmanuel was a hard-working secondary school teacher in Lagos. For years, he struggled with the stress of public transportation. Every morning, he woke at 4 a.m., squeezed into crowded buses, and arrived at school tired before the day even started. He dreamed of owning a car to make life easier. One afternoon, during his free period, he scrolled through online adverts and saw a post for a used Toyota Camry on a hire purchase arrangement. It read, "Pay 1 million Nigerian Nairas up front and spread the balance over 10 months. Excited by the opportunity, he called the owner, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson spoke with confidence and explained the terms in detail. Emmanuel was eager and arranged to meet him the next day. At Johnson's modest car dealership, the Toyota Camry sat clean and polished in a corner of the lot. Johnson described it as reliable and fuel-efficient, perfect for Emmanuel's needs. Emmanuel inspected the car, satisfied with its condition, and immediately imagined how much it would improve his daily life. Johnson handed him a typed agreement. This document contains all the terms. Once you finish paying, the car becomes yours, Johnson assured him. Without consulting a lawyer, Emmanuel quickly skimmed through and signed the document. For the first 4 months, everything went smoothly. Emmanuel paid 200,000 Nigerian Nairas monthly without fail. The car brought him freedom and convenience, saving him time and energy. His colleagues admired his new ride, and his neighbors envied his progress. He often encouraged friends to consider hire purchase arrangements, calling it a game changer for people like him. In the 5th month, however, trouble started. Emmanuel's school delayed salaries due to budget issues, leaving him unable to meet the next payment on time. Worried, he called Johnson to explain. "I'll pay as soon as my salary comes in 2 weeks," he promised. Johnson seemed to understand. "All right, but don't let this happen again," he said curtly. Relieved, Emmanuel hoped everything would work out. 2 weeks later, when his salary finally came in, Emmanuel withdrew the money and prepared to make the payment. But that evening, he noticed something strange. His car, usually parked in the driveway, was gone. Panicking, he called Johnson. "I think my car has been stolen," he exclaimed. Johnson's response was unexpected and harsh. "It wasn't stolen. I repossessed it. You defaulted on your payment. Read your agreement." Emmanuel was shocked. "But I told you I'd pay today. I've already paid more than half of the total amount," he protested. Johnson coldly replied, "The agreement says I can repossess the car without notice if you fail to pay on time." Devastated, Emmanuel felt betrayed and helpless. The car he had worked so hard for was gone. Determined to fight for his rights, he sought the help of a lawyer, Mr. Dada. "I was desperate to own a car and didn't read the agreement properly," Emmanuel confessed. "Now I've lost everything." Dada reviewed the agreement and frowned. "This document heavily favors the seller. It's unfair and lacks transparency. Nigerian law protects buyers like you, but this case won't be easy," he explained. "We'll fight," Emmanuel said with resolve. Together, they prepared to sue Johnson for wrongful repossession and unfair terms. The courtroom was filled with tension as Emmanuel and Johnson sat on opposite sides. Emmanuel appeared nervous but hopeful, while Johnson looked confident, certain that the agreement would shield him from liability. The judge, a stern middle-aged man, called on the court clerk to call the case. Dada, after announcing his appearance, called Emmanuel to the stand. Emmanuel explained how he had bought the car on hire purchase, made regular payments for 4 months, and informed Johnson about the delay in the 5th month. He described the humiliation of explaining the repossession to his neighbors and colleagues. "I've already paid over half the car's cost. I just needed a little more time," he said. Dada rose and addressed the court. "My lord, this case is about an unfair contract that has caused my client significant financial and emotional harm. The repossession of the car was abrupt, unreasonable, and unlawful," he argued. Johnson's lawyer, Mr. Ode, stood ready to defend his client. The courtroom murmured sympathetically. Dada concluded his case by emphasizing the injustice of Johnson's actions. "My lord, my client acted in good faith. The seller's actions are not only harsh but a violation of equity. Johnson then took the stand and was led by his lawyer. He stated, "The agreement clearly states that I have the right to repossess the car if payments are late," he said confidently. Mr. Emmanuel signed it willingly. "I simply followed the terms." Ode reinforced Johnson's argument. "My lord, contracts are sacred in law. My client acted within his legal rights as outlined in the agreement." The defense counsel tendered the agreement as exhibit, and it was admitted. The judge listened carefully but did not reveal his thoughts. Dada, plaintiff's counsel referred to the agreement just admitted in evidence and pointing out its unfair clauses. This document was drafted solely by the seller without any input from the buyer. It lacks balance and fairness, he argued. He cited provisions of the Nigerian Hire Purchase Act, which requires reasonable notice before repossession. Ode countered, stating that the law also allows parties to set their own terms. "My client cannot be held responsible for Mr. Emmanuel's failure to fulfill his obligations," he argued. The courtroom grew tense as the judge studied the agreement. After several minutes, he said, "I will take time to deliberate on the legal and moral aspects of this case. Judgment will be delivered in due course." Weeks later, the court reconvened. The judge delivered his ruling. While contracts are binding, they must not violate principles of fairness and equity, he began. He ruled that the repossession was unjust and violated Emmanuel's rights under the Hire Purchase Act. Johnson was ordered to refund 1,200,000 Nigerian nairas to Emmanuel, accounting for depreciation, while retaining ownership of the car. The judge emphasized the need for fairness in hire purchase agreements and warned sellers against exploiting buyers. Emmanuel felt a mix of relief and regret. He had lost the car but gained valuable lessons. Consulting a lawyer, reading agreements thoroughly, and knowing his rights would guide him in the future. As for Johnson, the judgment served as a reminder that fairness and empathy must guide business dealings. Case analysis. Lessons learned. Of Emmanuel and Johnson teaches important legal and moral lessons that everyone should understand. Legal lessons. 1. Consult a lawyer before signing. Always involve a legal expert before signing any agreement. Emmanuel's mistake was trusting Johnson's terms without legal guidance, which left him vulnerable to exploitation. 2. Understand the law. The Nigerian Hire Purchase Act protects buyers, requiring reasonable notice before repossession. Buyers should familiarize themselves with such laws to avoid being taken advantage of. 3. Fairness in agreements. Contracts should be balanced and fair to both parties. Emmanuel's agreement heavily favored Johnson, which the court later deemed unjust. 4. Document versus verbal agreements. Always insist on written records for any changes or promises made during transactions. Emmanuel lacked proof of Johnson's verbal promise to extend the payment deadline, weakening his case initially. 5. Timely payments are crucial. Even with legal protections, buyers should prioritize making payments on time to avoid disputes and complications. Moral lessons. 1. Trust but verify. It's good to trust others in business, but trust must be supported by clear, fair, and legally sound agreements. 2. Patience before commitment. Rushing into decisions, especially major ones like purchasing a car, can lead to mistakes. Emmanuel should have taken time to review the agreement carefully. 3. Empathy and understanding. If Johnson had shown empathy and allowed Emmanuel the additional 2 weeks, their conflict could have been avoided. Treat others fairly, especially when they act in good faith. 4. Learn from mistakes. Emmanuel's experience serves as a reminder to others to always read and understand agreements fully. Mistakes, though painful, can lead to growth and better decision-making in the future. 5. Fair business practices. Sellers like Johnson must recognize the human side of business. Fair treatment of customers builds trust and goodwill, ensuring long-term success. These lessons emphasize the importance of legal literacy, fairness, and ethical behavior, ensuring that future transactions are guided by justice and mutual respect. Hope you enjoyed the story. Subscribe to Legal Guide TV Stories for more real-life lessons and practical legal advice. Share this video to help others learn their rights. Always consult a lawyer before signing any agreement. See you in our next episode.